Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Dr. Karla Zingel-Leal. I'm so pleased to have you with me here today, Karla. Unfortunately, Sanga is not able to be here. Welcome to Tech Care. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Martin. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm a senior lecturer at Oxford Brookes Business School, and my research areas are around the care, home care specifically. So I focus on emergent and disruptive home care models. So when people receive care at home, also part of a broader aging place agenda. And I'm particularly interested in disruptive models, how they impact the quality of care received by older adults, and also the impact on the workforce.
You're just in the middle of where everything's happening here, right now.
Exactly, yes. So really there are two broader streams, if you like, that I'm interested in. One is the organizational models themselves, how these models are shaping the care market, how these organizations are creating and delivering value to people receiving care. And another side of things is the workforce development and professionalization. So what does professionalization means to the workforce, to care work? What is that impact on employment conditions, recognition, pay, etc.? So two different but quite closely related themes.
And I've also, of course, had a small look on the website where it describes some of your research and the work that you do. But I at the same time, I first really wanted to know more about you, actually, because I remember at the Care Show, it must have been just before COVID, I was listening to you when you were on stage, and especially actually on that topic of professionalization. I think you were on a panel.
Yes.
And given the fact that I'm also an international in this scene in the UK, at least, I could see a lot of resemblances with your research and the things that you were striving for. Tell us a bit more how you came to be interested in this topic.
I guess I've always done research around innovation in general, business model innovation. So the care sector came as an opportunity as I started a UKRI fellowship at Sheffield University. And I've never looked into care before, to be honest, and that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I kind of completely fell in love with it. I enjoy the challenges. I really enjoy working with academics and organizations that look after care. So that's how it actually started, and I'm quite grateful that the fellowship was focused on the care, and I was privileged enough to have over 30 academics for 3 years that were looking in care for all their lives. So that's how I fell into care, and I don't think I'll ever look back.
I think that sounds like a very likely story for a lot of people that have either started working early in their careers in social care, or have, as you have, at a slightly later stage, discovered this magnificent sector.
Yes.
And
true.
What were the things that you first saw and experienced that makes you now think that this is a place for you to be?
I think the main challenges are, as you know, quite a macro level, and I think the changes have to come in a much more, policy level and things like that. But I soon realized that everything is quite slow, particularly in the UK, in terms of change. So my interest had kind of shifted to look at organizations and of a more micro level. That's why I started to work with care workers and business leaders and entrepreneurs, because I think a lot of the real changes are coming from them, for individuals, and then, going out more of a bottom-up approach, if you like. So I still like to keep my eyes on what's happening in government and policy, but I feel the real change comes a lot of the time from organizations and people themselves.
Yeah, I can definitely follow you there. And looking particularly in some of the areas where you've got research and where you're interested in, how are the emergent models of home care, like platform models, then shaping the market in the UK? Because I know this is one of your topics, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So when I looked at different models, I looked at, the platform model, self-managed teams, and community-based
Mm,
models, and other types of, and that they have a very strong market orientation in terms of they're looking at what people want at this point in terms of, personalization and continuity of care. A
mm,
lot of the time and task, for example, as you know, they don't
mm,
offer that. People have several different carers coming in and out, and that's not ideal, if you like. But I
mm.
think the platform model itself um, is quite an interesting model because it's coming up not only in the UK but also everywhere, where you have these
Mm.
agencies that match care workers with with users. So they're quite, I think, a disruptive service in a way, and that allow the care workers to connect directly to each other. So I think it is attracting new entrants to the market in terms of care workers that want that
Yeah.
flexibility, of choosing their hours, of having, that same person to look after week in, week out. So I think is being highly criticized, but I find it to have a lot of positives to it as well.
So, can you give us any good examples of some of these platform models? What have you seen out there? Because in this show, we're not holding back on good recommendations.
Hmm. True. Yes. So, as I mentioned, that I think the platform model is becoming very central in terms of use in the care sector and home care in particular. So it's difficult to say how much of the home care market is fulfilled by this kind of model, because a lot of it, as you know, is unregulated in terms of CQC, um, commissioning, and that sort of thing. Um, but the model I research is a little bit different from other platform models. So when I was doing my research, I was looking for uh, kind of best in class, if you like. So they are quite unique, and they have a system of clients that rate their care workers. But the model that I looked at didn't have the rating system, so they had a bidding system, which means a customer would put their requirements in the system. For example, someone wants a carer for their mom who has perhaps dementia, needs help with meal preparation, or has a dog and prefers someone that who drives, or whatever the requirements are. So the system then filters appropriate carers that match that those requirements and the level of experience. And that will normally generate a list of perhaps 25 to 30 carers or care workers that are appropriate to that client. So a job summary is then sent to those carers, and the ones that are interested in the job, so they look at the location, the requirements, they can bid for the job, and then the introduction starts. And so the client usually receives back perhaps half a dozen profiles to review, and they start to they can meet or they can chat, etc. So um, in my case study, the platform was really seeing themselves as formalizing this informal economy. So it was a little bit different.
It sounds like technology is playing a larger role in a normal selection process here.
Oh, totally. Yes. So they have a very, how do you say, very good algorithm that would match carers to recipients, and also that level of experience that they have, which is quite important. So the agency will do all the background checks and all that kind of thing that perhaps you wouldn't do with a PA. But yes, yeah, it's quite an interesting way of looking at tech in that sense.
Of course, not jumping to any conclusion, but do you think tech is enabling here? Do you think it's advancing some things here?
Oh,
Or,
I think all of it for sure. Yes, we can't run away from it, right? And I think one of the challenges a lot of the agencies that I worked with have is really around tech, and the tech to provide the continuity of care, to provide a kind of a seamless match between what care workers do and how they, audit things, how they, refer back to families, that sort of thing, and how they do a peer-to-peer support as well. That was really important on a lot of agencies I looked at, how tech enabled them to talk to other care workers and share experiences, share, grievances and things like that. And that was another angle, totally different from the auditing, for example, which is more, regulations, the more personal side of things, how they communicate with the families, how they communicate with each other. That was also quite important.
Yeah, it sounds like there is that element of enablement that I know a lot of tech providers in this space are going for, not only, of course, out of superhuman values,
Yeah.
but also because it's a really, really good business idea to propose
Yes.
such a thing. But did
Hmm.
you then also discover some barriers when it comes to that sort of tech in the equation?
Barriers in terms of the technology, or
Yeah.
um,
If it was enabling in some parts, could it then also be hindering or
um,
causing some kind of a barrier in other parts?
not necessarily. I think the main barrier was in terms of financing the technology to certain organizations. Um,
Mm.
I didn't feel any negative or drawbacks from the current tech used by care workers, for example. What I
No.
felt was that they lacked, they wanted more, but perhaps they couldn't use it, and a lot of the time they wanted something quite specific.
Yeah.
So it does make me wonder, and perhaps you have a better insight into that, if it's better to have a general kind of tech, or because it's so specific and everything is so personalized, as you know,
Yeah.
it's hard to determine if it's better to have one kind of tech that is used by everyone, or something quite individual, which a lot of organizations do.
Yeah, no, I definitely would encourage what you described earlier as a best in class because it
Mm,
also lets you, re, of course, relying on the type of organization you are, the type of
yeah.
professionals that work with you, the type of
Hmm.
people that you support.
Yes.
Some products or services would cater to you and some to others. So
Mm,
I think that's a really good starting point, at least. But the reason why I'm asking about barriers is, of course, not to only here in this tech care show
hmm.
to point to the positive stories, but really to also talk about the things that could be further emphasized, that could
Mm,
make sure that we, from this perspective, tell a good story, a full story about how tech is playing a part in the equation.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did the professionals receive and sort of stay motivated on this type of home care model or platform?
It really varies. So, for example, for a living care model, the main motivation is to build a relationship, and instead of rushing from tasks to task.
Yeah,
So the living care, they obviously receive a very comprehensive training, and normally care workers are from abroad, so it suits their needs in terms of they come to the UK, spend several weeks looking after an elderly person or a couple, and then they go back, and that suits their lifestyle and how they
mm,
manage their lives. That's not for everyone, obviously, because you're 24/7
mm,
in someone's home. For self-managed care teams, or that sort of model, there's a focus on the outcomes rather than the tasks. So the care workers come from a variety of different backgrounds, and the model supports that freedom and responsibility for frontline workers. So it enables them to create the relationship that they need, and also to co-create things with recipients. So it's much more collective way of seeing things. On the platform model, motivations are again different. So one point that came up over and over again is the fact that you can choose where you want to work, and that's quite key, because a lot of the traveling issue is a problem for workers. So when they can choose where they want to work, how often they want to go, is a lot. It is a positive for them, and that continuity of care. So again, that came up over and over again. So each model
mm.
has they have their own um, kind of profile of carers, I guess. And I
Yeah.
think that's a beautiful thing, and I think that's one of the attractive things from the care sector is that the different roles that you can have, the different type of care you can offer is incredible, and I think that variety should and diversity should continue, and I think that's good.
Yeah, I can definitely, just from like a personal experience, I could definitely see how my use of own apps in my own time, like
Hmm.
for short-term renting cars, for I don't know, ordering foods, and all of these like platform economy kind of things.
Mm.
I could definitely see that being applicable to
Yeah.
the home care market, where you're
Hmm.
more in charge, both as the care
Yes.
professional, you're more in charge of your own time, the autonomy and all that. And at the same time, also as the recipient, you're also able to say, well, really, I'd like this person again and again, or I'd like to add this to my package, or
Yeah.
there's there's a real there's a real modern touch and feel to
Yeah.
that. And I've also seen a few of these platforms, um, and I personally also really like them, like intuitively.
Yeah.
But what are the did you discover anything about the implications then for the actual care work for this type of way of working?
um oh, absolutely. I think, for example, the platform, they work as an intermediary, if you like, but is
Mm,
usually a mechanism that the care worker and the client connect to each other locally. So I think matching those needs and and being able to choose your rate and that kind of thing gives a
mm,
different implication. I think another aspect of these models, it's an opportunity for care for the workforce development. So a better
mm.
professionalization in the sense that they have, as you said, that independence to, to do more, and that in turn offers this autonomy, I guess, offers the workforce a better, well, they offer better care in return because they have
Yeah,
that autonomy. So yeah, I think, but as you know, the perception and recognition from public still perceive them as low skilled, even though they are extremely high skilled. And
yeah,
even after the pandemic, which I had hope that things would change because it highlighted a lot how vital they are, but it hasn't much, and that was disappointing. Um,
mm,
but I'm also trying to understand what professionalization means to them. Um, there's a lot of talk about, you know, regulation and registration and all that kind of thing, which I was quite for before. And then I start to look around in different countries and I realized that perhaps having more regulation is not the best way forward to professionalize. Um, I mean, we have evidence from I think Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland already have that system, and there's quite positive evidence from it. Um, but I'm more for the perhaps training and development side of things to professionalize rather than creating more barriers. It depends, I
yeah,
guess. It depends what the regulation is for.
yeah,
If it's a platform for complaints and fault finding, then I think it's problematic. If it's a platform
yeah.
for recognition, then I think it's a good thing. So it depends how it's
Yeah.
applied, I guess.
I could definitely follow that. Just on Friday, I was doing the Care Workers Charity Peak District trek, and
Oh,
we were
lovely.
a small group of yeah, yeah, it was lovely, really,
Nice.
so beautiful there. I mean, I almost couldn't believe it. It was my first time walking that. I'd been driving through before, but it was
Uh-huh.
quite stunning.
Yeah.
But we were a group of people that were walking together,
Yeah.
and this
Hmm.
came up about the professionalization of the
Okay.
workforce,
Hmm.
and none of us could actually recall the original arguments for why this wasn't a good idea. Well, why
Yes.
wouldn't we go ahead with this? I know I realize now because you've already added some details to what I previously knew at least, that there are different ways of doing it or going about it. But I think that either way actually still sounds more appealing than not having professionalization.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, but of course, I totally agree, and I think that's for me is the only way forward. But I think we need to understand what that means for care
Yeah,
work
of course.
specifically. And I've looked at other sectors to try to compare how how nurses became professionals, or how firemen became a
Yeah,
profession, and it's all down to education. I mean,
yeah,
they might have bodies of, associations and things that support them, or unions or things like that. That's all fine. But I think the main change has been once they have uh, a standard of training that is recognizable, and then people will perceive that as a profession rather than just a job. And that
yeah,
was one of the key things that I took out of looking at how other sectors or other careers professionalize themselves. And a lot of people don't. Oh, you don't need more training. You don't need. I don't think we need more training, but I think we need to create a strategy that is formalized in a way that is perceived and is delivered as a profession, which I think Skills for Care is trying to do for a while.
we could hope for that at least
We
in
can.
this small conversation.
Yeah.
Have you seen what it does to the workforce? And I know that's a relatively large question. When this is then carried through, like, what does it do?
Oh, absolutely. So we have an excellent example from New Zealand. In New Zealand, they they narrow it down. So they used to have a very scattered, very they had 400 different types of certifications and all sorts of things. It was all over the place.
Oh,
And what they did, they narrow it down. Um, they the first thing they did actually was to look at pay equity. So they look at qualifications and the length of experience, and tie that to pay and progression. And that was a key thing that they did. So they have three levels of qualifications that are designed to train workers, and is a very much person-centered support, and in terms of leadership as well. And employers support those workers to achieve those qualifications, and they have a certain time scale to do so. And the government funds the employers for for training, for taking time during every year. They take time out to train, and that kind of stuff. So that national pay and progression framework was formed, and that completely changed the gender gap, pay equity, inequity that was, and it brought a lot of new entrants to the market. So they have a lot more younger people wanted to join this sector, because they can see a progression, they can see that it's
yeah,
recognized, and that worked well for that country, and they did it fairly quickly. Of course, they are much smaller than the UK, so
yeah.
maybe it was it's a different way of going about it. Um, but I think that's the best example that there is for how changed in terms of training and recognition, having a strategy and apply that, it actually works quite well.
Have you studied the Scandinavian model, or perhaps even closer to where I'm from, the Danish model? Because I think that there seems to be a lot of similarities between what New Zealand have done
Okay.
and what the Scandinavians are doing. Have
No,
you seen
I have
anything or heard anything
no,
from? No.
I've heard, I've read about it, but I don't know in depth. Um, I know that the Nuffield Trust just launched a report by Nina Hemmings. I don't know if you know. She did a
Yeah, of
fantastic
name.
work, and she looked at different professionalization in different countries, and I'm sure and I definitely know that she talks about what you just mentioned. So that's a good hook to look at. Very
Yeah,
recent. It was just launched, I think, last week. So
we'll
there's
have
a
to
lot
see
of
if we can find some links so we can put them in the show notes, because it sounds like
definitely.
a
Yeah,
must
yeah,
read.
for sure. Yeah, it's a great report. Absolutely. Yes.
But then perhaps a bit further away from
Yeah.
Scandinavia and the UK.
Yeah.
I know that you're currently working with a research project in South Korea. What's that all
Yes.
about?
So I'm I was lucky enough to join a network when I joined Brooks last year, and they were bidding for an ESRC to create this network, looking at aging place that's between UK and South Korea. So it's really to understand the relationship between healthy aging, housing, and social care in both countries. So I've been working, as I mentioned, with international partners for a while now, as population aging and those sort of issues are not only UK based; they are worldwide, and they are. It's incredible to see a different angle from South Korea because the perspective. It's very important to understand how different government policies actually apply things. So, for example, South Korean policies are very focused. They are very pragmatic and have like a pro-business angle to them. So they're very effective and very efficient into transforming those policies into practice. So I think there's a lot to learn. One of the things that they did, for example, in 2005, the government uh, recognized elderly as a marginalized group. So within 3 years, they built over 1 million what they call silver housing accommodation to support older people, and they, public apartments and houses, which is quite incredible that in such a short period of time they built so much. And is as you know, South Korea is fairly small country, so they don't have a lot of land. So they build this high risers, and it's quite incredible to see. We went to visit them. They are like 30, 40 floors, but it's all around the community around it, and it's quite an interesting way because they have like the first 5 floors dedicated to entertainment or the community, and then from the 6th floor until up, it's all where they live. And it's quite interesting because, for example, they would have on the first floor they have like a cafe, an information center. On the second floor they might have a classroom. On the third floor they have a healthcare center with doctors and nurses 24/7. And then they have on the fourth floor they might have a gym or exercise, and then the fifth floor they have a garden where everyone participates as well. So it's quite a and people they are involved with what's happening. So they are volunteers within the whole block, involved with things around arts or music or cooking. So it's quite an interesting way of living. It's very holistic, but the fact that they did it so quickly is quite impressive. I don't see the UK building 1 million homes in 2 years.
And it sounds like they have a slightly different way of approaching like the overall care model.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I want. So I'm really keen to start some primary research in that country to get into the very nitty-gritty about how exactly they do those, how they change those policies so quickly. How do they attract organizations to get involved? Um, because I think we can definitely learn from them a lot of things. Yes, and they use a lot of robotics as well and that sort of thing. So they're quite yes, so they're quite developed in that sense, using AI and robotics for everything from monitoring, for prevention, uh, or normal things like bathing, toileting, feeding, all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff as well. But they use a lot of more in a preventative way as well, or rehabilitation, that sort of thing, to make sure
yeah,
people live longer well rather than in need. Yeah.
yeah. So
Hmm.
there is that rehabilitative
Yeah.
quintessential thought in the model.
Yes.
That sounds like
Absolutely.
something for me. I would really love to understand and find out how that's transferable to what we've got and how that can be incrementally improved here.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I'm interested in looking there because, as you said, how do you make those things available,
Yeah,
to more people? Because, as you know, is in the beginning it might be expensive, but you still need to, and you have lots of pilot works going on. But how do you get that into the market, and they are looking at different service models in terms of insurance, how insurance companies should include those kind of things, in their policies. So should you do business to business, business to consumer? Should people be able to purchase directly from manufacturers? I mean, so they are investigating the best way for that innovation to disseminate as quickly as possible, and many people have access to that in their houses, or yeah, or in that sort of thing. So yeah, it's great.
Sounds like you've got a really interesting uh, couple of years coming up with trying to, first of all, understand all of that, and then perhaps even consider ways of how that's transferable
Yeah.
to the UK.
Yes, no, it's exciting, and I think if the ultimate aim is to age well in place rather than being stuck in place, then we definitely need, right? Because that's what we all want. We don't want to be stuck in place, and we want to
No.
live well and healthy and well as possible. So I think we really need a very creative, engaged workforce as well, and I think the community feeling is. It's very important as well. So care models that embrace that community and prevention, for me, is probably the most sustainable and more humane way of working. So yeah.
It sounds like it's a multidisciplinary target to really be in a position where you can leverage
Yes.
both that research for you personally, but
Mm-hmm.
also for us all in this sector.
Yeah, absolutely.
Karla, it was a really huge pleasure to have you on here today and to get a shortcut to understanding some of the things that you're working with.
Thank you so much, Morten. It's been great. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, review, and share your favorite Take Care podcast with your friends and colleagues. Until we meet next week, take care.